Hello, my name is Roman Djindjihashvili. I've been making videos and DVDs for many years already. And I remember at first when my videos at that time were coming out, I was very popular with a video about sharp opening lines. And there was a multiple request for continuing them. I haven't done that. Then repeatedly after I started making DVDs already, that means in recent years, I had multiple requests for making DVDs on very sharp lines because some people enjoy, a lot of people actually enjoy very sharp opening lines. Well, they need ideas and how to play them and to play for traps. I am not a big fan of specifically building game for tricks and traps, but when it's part of the sharp opening, and sometimes it's very important to know these traps, not to fall in them, and to know these traps to catch your opponent in. So that's what we're going to do. I will recommend some lines that are very sharp and it's okay to play. You know, once you make an accent on special type of the game you want to get, so you may not get opening advantage, but you will get the sharp positions you have. And majority of the viewers requesting this kind of lines. So they will be from various different openings, from against e4 or d4, with e4 or d4, and that's what we're going to be discussing: how to build these traps, and how to play sharp openings, and how to avoid this trap. Of course, we cannot go through everything because then we need like 20-hour DVD. That may not be enough either. So I will introduce you to some sharp lines and traps of my preference. So sit tight and watch this DVD. First, let's talk about Alekhine defense. E4, knight f6. E5 is the most common move, probably something you should play. Knight d5. And here, well, most common move in a theory is d4, getting to position with a small advantage for white, but we are not going to go through whole routine of studying Alekhine defense. So I am bringing to your attention very sharp line of Alekhine defense. Once I was analyzing many years ago, it does not necessarily give you advantage, but for those who like very sharp positions and blood boiling continuations, so then c4, knight to b6, and c5, forcing knight back, and now to play knight c3. This opening, this move, and this variation may not guarantee you opening advantage, but it guarantees you very sharp position. And here, the way it may continue. Well, you're playing someone who doesn't know these lines very well. What should you expect here? Knight takes c3, e6, protecting the knight, or c6. Now let me tell you the flexibility white has playing this position and what is the advantage of playing this variation. Most common move we're going to go with first is knight takes c3. Then we have to take back with a d pawn, and normally the rule says you should take pieces towards the center. But here we already exposed our c5 and e5 pawns, and we are betting and building our game on initiative. So we want to open files, and we want to open our pieces as much as we can in the very early stage. Well, black can continue knight c6, they can go e6, and they can go d6. Again, in every continuation, white is flexible to have a couple of choices. For example, d6. This is the most controversial continuation. After d6, we play here move that is very difficult to predict. So what do we play here is queen b3. This is a weird looking move, and what is the point of it? We are sacrificing c5 pawn or e5 pawn. It's black's option. Most common move, that's why there is a trap in this position and there is a trick in this position, and it's very sharp. DE. If black has a choice of taking some pawn, the rule says it's better to take the central pawn rather than c pawn, which gives you nearly worthless advantage. And after DE, I have to tell you, it's hard to imagine, but black is in trouble. And the value of this trap is that it's hard to tell that black is in trouble because white almost have no pieces developed. And I am strongly opposing always starting attack on opponent's king once you are not fully developed. This is a good exception. Here white makes bishop g5 move that immediately puts black in a lot of trouble. Believe it or not, the only move here is queen d7. Now, suppose you're playing this position. How can you expect anyone on the average level that has never seen this position, and this position is very hard to see to see in any opening books or any theoretical books. So here, any other move will put black in a lot of danger. For example, they want to develop. They want to go e6 and develop this bishop. But right away, of course, they cannot go e6 because queen is hanging. Suppose they go f6, expecting black dark square bishop of white to move and then continue with e6, which gives them good position. But here, after rook d1, black is virtually lost. Black is lost. Well, bishop d7 will give them a lot of trouble after losing that pawn on b7. That will create a lot of immediate threats. And if knight d7, here comes a highly powerful move, very powerful move. Well, if we play bishop c4, threatening mate on f7, unfortunately that's not good, because simple e6 will solve all black's problems, and bishop takes e6, queen e7. Now black is maybe threatening knight takes c5, bishop is hanging, and this is not what white was playing for. But how the powerful move is very thematic, is to block the e7 pawn, and after queen e6 black is absolutely lost. White wants to do bishop c4, next move, for example on taking bishop c4, and there is no defense from the mate. There is no defense except for giving up a queen in this position. Well, black should probably play knight takes c5 and give up the queen. White takes the queen with the check and has big material advantage in winning position. So here is no defense. So the main threat for white is to go rook d1 or even bishop c4. For example, if you play h6, after bishop c4, I don't see how can f7 pawn be protected, since e6 cannot be played because black's queen is hanging, and if on taking that's a simple mate in two moves. So black has to neutralize bishop c4 threat, and the only way to do it, as we already saw, f6 is not good because of rook d1, and the only way to do it is to go queen d7. But then knight f3, here you wanted very active and attacking position. There it is. You sacrifice the pawn, and you're going to have now a very strong attack. Knight f3, and again e4 is not good because of bishop c4, and on queen f5, knight d4, this is one of the examples, and on queen takes g5, bishop takes f7 check, and on king d8, rook d1. How is this for very strong attack? Black is totally lost. Well, the best move is here queen f5, but even then white can simply play bishop f5, having very, very strong attack. And if e6, then maybe even castling long. Look at the advantage the threatening rook d8 made. Look at the advantage in development. White has all its pieces developed and castled. Black has only queen developed and not castled. It's a dramatic difference. White has very powerful attack. Queen b3 is a very tricky move, as I already said. Of course, black has different options, such as knight c6, and if we go knight f3 to play e6. But if those things happen, if this happens, white always has normal position. I would recommend CD, and maybe even bishop b5 now. White develops quickly. You have active position with a possibility for attack. So instead of d6, there maybe play d6. That's another option. Well, what can we play on e6? I would say we could go here maybe bishop f4. We're giving up a pawn, but you see, once you create weak pawn on c5, you don't create the weak pawn then in order then to try to defend it somehow. No, you creating it because you have intention of sacrificing when it's necessary. Bishop takes c5, queen g4, attacking g7 pawn, and now move like bishop f8 back will face some problems after bishop g5, and if bishop on e7, white gets the pawn back with a better position, and move like f6 will lead to complete disaster after pawn takes, and black loses its queen after queen h5 check, bishop takes f6 check, and queen h4 check, winning the queen and the game. So after queen g4, here castling is not option because of bishop h6, winning exchange after g6, bishop takes f8. So then only other option that's left is probably g6. Well, the option g5 will get white back the pawn on g5. They can simply take with a queen, or they can even take with a bishop. And after rook g8, take on d8 and take on c7. So the only other option left is g6, in which case what you do, you don't have any concrete and immediate solution. What you do here, you play knight f3, suppose knight c6. I would castle long and develop light square bishop. Well, black is going to have very hard time castling queen side. It's almost impossible, and it's very dangerous to castle king side. So there are no other sides, only one or the other. Staying in the center is never been safe in those positions. Well, I just want to point that taking another pawn on f2 just will increase white's advantage in development and put black in a bigger trouble, more trouble. So maybe even bishop g5, forcing knight e7 and bishop f6. White has extremely powerful attack here after h4, h5. Black is not going to survive if white plays more or less reasonably here. Actually, maybe even queen g5. This is not acceptable option for black. So white has very good attack. So I cannot go and explain how to conduct this attack, because if you don't understand that white has powerful attack and black has weak dark squares on king side, then you shouldn't be playing it. So this is another interesting option. What to do on e6, bishop f4. This is good option for white. Now, the other move possible here is d5, not d6. Well, I would say here I would recommend maybe to take en passant. You don't have to do that. We can go bishop e3, and then go f4. This is one option, and this is the other option, taking en passant, and then when black retakes, most likely with the e pawn, and then you can go just simply bishop f4. You have comfortable position with good development, slight advantage. Position is simple though. After knight c6, you have a choice between knight f3, but then it allows bishop g4, and the other choice is bishop b5. This is a reasonably good move, and white develops very quickly. Queen e2, knight f3, and they have very comfortable position. But the most likely to expect is d6, which I already went through, queen b3. Now, here, of course, this is the key position where black has little better choices, such as c6 or e6. What do we do here? On e6, we will go d4 or bishop c4. Now, what is bishop c4 really? Then, after bishop takes c5, we're gonna have very hard time proving that we have an advantage here. We don't. We don't have an advantage. And black is doing very well here. They can castle and play d6. So I don't really recommend to play bishop c4. So we go d4, and here black cannot tolerate white's center, so they have to break through. So d6. In which case you can simply take on d6, go knight f3, and you have very, very good development. You have slight advantage, not big. Well, when you try to play sharp variation in some opening, there is always antidote for opposite side to turn it into quiet position. But if you every time avoid sharp continuation, such something your opponent may consider, you always give up best options. Some best options is in a sharp response. Well, here we just go knight f3, and we have space advantage. So after d takes c, you have two options. You can take with the knight, which is pretty good, and then you go bishop d3 and quick castling, or you can take with a pawn, which leads to exchange of queens, where you have very, very good chances also. You have a little slightly inferior pawn structure, but you have big space advantage, and black's king is not castled, and this position is by no means is an endgame position, just because queens are off the board. This position is quite a solid advantage for white. So here, the most competitive way for black to play is c6 move. Now, what can I tell you in c6 move? Here is, first of all, you can go to very sharp continuation, or you can play quietly and get some advantage. Well, sharp continuation is bishop c4, d6, and now queen b3. This was analyzed by me many years ago. This is okay for black after knight d7 move with the intention of knight takes c5. Now, if you want to study these continuations, I recommend you to study this from the opening book, because there is nothing new I can show you. There is nothing that I invented that I can present you as as the original work. So the simpler continuations here are simply knight f3. This is an easy way to play, and here you can go either cd, ed, and d4, which is okay, or maybe even knight takes d5 and d4. Pretty simple continuations, and it's not much of a rocket science. Position is simple. White has a slight advantage. So, conclusion for this c4, knight b6, c5, knight d5, knight c3 variation. You get very sharp position if you want to, which you have to go. The only sharp position that I am not big fan of is this knight d7 move, but every other sharp position that may occur here on c6, as I already said, I may go knight f3 and d4, and every other position, the sharp position favors white, especially this, they take c. But here, after queen b3, you're entering very sharp position and very, very sophisticated hidden trap. Trap is d takes c, bishop g5, puts black right on the edge. And if they fail to make some very accurate moves, they're going to face immediate disaster. So this is recommendation number 1 on for sharp players on the Alekhine defense. Now I want to talk to you about some interesting and rare continuations that may provide you some new possibilities in a very well-known pawn of attack in Caro-Kann. e4, c6, d4, d5, ed, cd, c4, knight f6, knight c3. Actually, I have to point to you that you can get pawn of attack from Caro-Kann, and also you may get it from Scandinavian. For example, on ed knight f6, if you go c4 and after c6, d4, cd, knight c3, you see you have an identical position. Okay, now after knight c3, black here has basically 3 continuations. One is knight c6, one is g6, and the most popular, most common, and almost you should expect it in most of your games that you play, e6. But before we go to e6, let's cover quickly knight c6 and g6 continuations. Well, I don't want to add anything new here besides what theoretical books say. After knight c6, I want to give you a quick overview on the theoretical continuations, knight f3, and now bishop g4. That was the idea of knight c6. Then cd, knight takes d5, queen b3. According to theory, white has little advantage here, and I agree with it 100%. And you may, if you need to study it a little further and deeper, then please use the theoretical recommendations of any opening book. So this is the knight c6 continuation. Regarding g6, there's a best move queen b3, which practically wins a pawn on d5, because taking on c4 is not recommended for black because f7 pawn is hanging, and after e6, knight f3, black has difficult position. It's known that it's not a good idea to play e6 and g6 in the opening at the same, in a very early stage. So, and bishop g7, c takes d, castle, and then white has several options of playing bishop e2 followed by bishop f3, or they can go g3 followed by bishop g2. Black has some compensation, white is a little better. And again, I don't have any of my personal recommendations, and I wouldn't waste time analyzing this for you because that's something you can get from the opening book, maybe even better explained than I can do now. So what I want to do, I want to focus on the main continuation, which is e6. We go knight f3 now, and again, most popular move bishop e7. Bishop b4 is another option which was very popular for black years ago, but not lately. Well, white can simply play c takes d and get some advantage after bishop d2 or queen c2. Well, actually, I can present you one very interesting and super sharp line that happened in a couple of my games here. Black plays knight c6, and you play bishop d3. Why is it very sharp? This is very sharp because bishop d3 last move is a pawn sacrifice. Black can win a pawn right now. Knight takes c3, pawn takes c3, and knight takes d4. Now this is something that black shouldn't do. That's not a good idea for black. And first time this was played in the game between Portisch and Najdorf many years ago, and white simply blundered this pawn, and that was very, very successful blunder, and white got very powerful attack. I don't remember what the result of the game was, but this is not a good continuation. Now, queen a4 check is not going to do anything because knight simply goes to c6, and if we take the bishop on b4, our d3 pawn is hanging, d3 bishop is hanging. The key move is knight takes d4, queen takes d4, and this is bad position. And again, queen a4 check doesn't do anything because of simply bishop d7. But the reason why this position is so bad is bishop b5 check, No, this is the sharp continuation that not provoked by white. White just allows it. The sharp continuations we're going to talk right when we're done with this variation. After check, bishop d7 is not playable because black simply loses at once after bishop takes d7. And now if queen takes, we take the bishop. And if king takes, we also take the bishop after queen a4 check. Queen takes b4, which simply wins the game. That means after bishop b5 check, king has to move to f8 or e7. It's not that relevant. White castles, and after queen takes c3, queen e4. This position I consider superbly dangerous for black. It might have maybe even lost position. Now, taking the rook is out of question because it immediately loses after queen takes and king g8, bishop a3. Queen is hanging, mate on f8 is hanging. This is out of question. And after queen e4, white is going to develop bishop next move to f4 and expose the queen on c3. And uncastled king is good enough for white to get decisive attack. This is not good for black. So if black cannot play this, then white simply continues the development of, for example, bishop e7. Now we should play a3 to stop knight b4 to preserve our bishop on d3. And this is simply just better position for white. So let's go back to the main continuation, which is bishop to e7. And that's where I want to introduce you some different way to play for white. Different than usually white plays. So at first we play the usual move, c takes d, and obviously black has two continuations, knight takes d5 and pawn takes d5. Pawn takes d5 is not recommended because, first of all, bishop b5 check gives some advantage, and after bishop d7, bishop takes d7, and if queen takes d7, knight e5, and if knight takes d7, queen b3. So, and secondly, bishop d3 move, and after black castles, simply h3. You see, this looks like symmetrical position, but it's really very difficult position for black. The reason why? Because they have problem with the bishop on c8. White controls this diagonal, and playing bishop f5, they never have a chance because we go bishop d3 right away. And developing this bishop to g4 can be a lot worse. Now there is queen takes b7 threat, there is knight e5 possibility, on bishop takes f3, queen takes b7. It's known and it's bad. And as soon as black castles, we go h3, eliminating bishop g4, and bishop has no better square to develop than to e6. And white simply castles. It's symmetrical, only the pawn structure. Position remains bad for black. So we can go bishop g5 or bishop f4, and then queen e2, rook comes into the game. It's a simple position. There were games played with it, and it's not good for black. The main continuation, of course, is knight takes d5. And we play regular move bishop d3, where white castles normally, we castle, and knight c6. Well, here we play rook e1. This is all played millions of times, and it's very normal. Here, we didn't start our new continuations I was getting to. Not yet. Rook e1. Here are two main moves, knight f6 or bishop f6. After bishop f6, if we play normal recommended way, bishop e4, we'll always get some advantage. On knight e7, we can go queen d3, and white does have an advantage because on g6 you can go bishop h6 and followed by rook d1. You're going to have very pleasant position. And if bishop g7, even if you exchange those bishops and you go rook d1, you have very pleasant position. Plus, you can go bishop g5. The only thing you have to remember, not to fall, not to be a victim of a trap yourself. After bishop takes g7, king takes g7, rook d1, remember to take on c3 with the queen. You cannot take with the pawn, because that's how your bishop gets trapped. And we get our sharp continuations, sharp meaning for white also, sharp losing sharp. So this is not the trap you want to fall into. So every time they play knight takes c3 something, you go queen takes c3. So that's not the problem. Main continuation, well, that was popular for many, many years, knight f6, the main continuation. And the move I want you to consider seriously, normal move is bishop g5. It's by far the most popular move. The move a3. It's not completely new move, it has just some interesting possibilities and developments. Well, here where you can get some very sharp positions. Black must continue development as in every opening you may see. b6. And here you see we withholding bishop g5. We don't want to play bishop g5 yet. We go bishop c2. And after bishop c2, I would doubt that any of your opponent in any position, unless they are highly skilled in theoretical preparation and they know the openings the best possible way, I don't see them play any other move than bishop b7. But more sophisticated move is bishop a6. But why wouldn't you put bishop on a good diagonal on b7? On bishop a6 we can simply go b4, and on bishop c4 we can just go bishop g5 and continue a normal play. Now the reason we played b4, because after bishop c4 this bishop cannot come back to this diagonal anymore on b7. But as I already mentioned, expected move is bishop b7. And we're going to analyze it very, very carefully. Before we go to this, I want to show you, instead of bishop c2, this is one sharp line, and the other sharp line is 95. The difference between these two sharp lines, that 95 may get very sharp if black cooperates. But if black does not cooperate, you're going to end up with a small advantage in quiet position. And that may be something you want to do. So let's look at the knight e5 variation. Knight e5 sacrifices the pawn on d4, which is very dangerous to take. I would say which is very bad to take, because we go bishop e3, creating deadly threat of bishop takes d4 and bishop takes h7, bishop d4, and winning queen. So, of course, black is not going to allow it. On the other hand, this knight is in jeopardy. And if knight f5, then queen f3 is nearly winning, attacking the rook on a8, which cannot move because of the knight c6 fork, or maybe even taking the knight first and then knight c6. Knight takes d4 is a bad move. Well, then bishop b7. Now, if you went that far, the key move that we want to make is bishop a6. This is a tricky move, and many times, even I played game against Grandmaster, tournament game, even he went wrong, and he went for position he thought would be okay, and it wasn't. What he did is he played bishop takes a6, and this is a really bad position for black. Knight takes c6, queen d7, knight takes e7, queen takes e7, and bishop g5. This position is highly dangerous for black because it's very difficult to get rid of this pin without weakening king position. For example, h6 we simply just go back. Actually, after h6, we have very powerful shot knight d5, which probably just wins the game. And also, you have a threat of knight d5. You have a threat of pawn d5. And you have a threat of simply continuing queen f3 and rook d1. Position is really bad for black. So, after bishop a6, that leaves black with only one move. Queen c8, bishop takes b7, queen takes b7, knight takes c6, queen takes c6, and d5. Well, black has to be careful here. After queen c4, we should play queen e2, forcing the exchange of queens. You see, at no point black could take the d5 pawn. Queen takes e2, rook takes e2, and now bishop c5. That's the only move that saves black here. D takes c, f takes e, and here white should play bishop e3, where they have small advantage in the form of a weak pawn on e6. Well, some of you may like it, so that's the position you may play. But don't take on e6, because after knight g4, black is going to have an advantage. So bishop e3. See, if black avoids traps such as knight takes d4, which gives them, after bishop e3, nearly lost position, that's a trap. We don't play for this trap. We don't try to catch opponent, and if he doesn't fall into trap, we have bad position. No. Those are the traps on the way to the position you may like to play. So this is one trap. Second trap is if they take on a6, they have possible disaster coming their way. Threats are knight d5, pawn d5, queen f3. So those are two traps, and this is the quick outline of the knight e5 continuation. But now let's go back to the second line, bishop c2. Well, this one will give you a middle game position, very sharp with possibilities for attack. Now, bishop b7, as we said, and bishop a6 is the other option, which we go b4, and bishop on c4 is kind of sticking out a little bit. We can even go knight e5. Well, maybe not on this move, maybe after bishop g5. White is doing okay here. I like white's position. I used to play bishop a6, and I like it a lot less now. So after bishop b7, we go queen to d3. Now, this move is already a trap. But again, it's trap. We expect that you should always expect your opponent to avoid the trap and do the best move. So it's designed for the best move g6, where we want to play bishop h6 one shot without playing bishop g5 first. So, but let's see first what is the trap. For example, rook c8, this is the most natural move. And now black is nearly lost. Here is the trap, d5. You see, knight cannot take on d5 because of the mate on h7. He takes d. Now bishop g5. Threat is very simple. Is bishop takes f6 and mate on h7. g6 is not playable because rook takes e7 wins. If knight takes e7, bishop takes f6, and if queen takes e7, knight takes d5. Winning decisive advantage. White is going to have decisive advantage in material. So, the only move here is knight e4. Then we play knight takes e4, d takes e4, queen takes e4. This wins for white in two different ways. Two different ways because black's answer is forced, g6, and white has winning continuation. It's an endgame. White cannot win a piece. No. After bishop takes e7, black plays queen takes e7. It's all forced. Queen takes e7, knight takes e7, rook takes e7, and now, in order not to lose a piece, black has to play bishop takes f3. If they take on c2, their b7 bishop is hanging. Bishop takes f3, bishop to b3, bishop a8, rook takes a7, white has an extra pawn, big positional advantage, and winning position, winning endgame. This is one. Well, some technique is required, but what maybe that's what I analyzed, and that's what I was the complete disaster for black. But then queen h4, maybe even a lot stronger. Now it may lead to complete disaster for black. Bishop takes g5, knight takes g5, forcing h5, and now rook a to d1. This is nearly hopeless position. And on queen c7, I don't know, you may go knight e4, or some people may try g4. This is disastrous position. It looks so bad that I didn't feel like I have a need of analyzing any farther than the current position. So this shows us that the rook c8 is a losing move. The correct move is g6, bishop h6, rook e8, and rook a to d1. Now, you see, you had already a couple of traps on the way where black could have experienced complete disaster. Now you just have very active position. And it's very important that black doesn't have very strong grip on d5 square. Rook c8. And now I remember reading some theoretical magazine, and it says that it was many years ago, knight g5 is not good because of knight g4, and white's bishop is in trouble. And then that was before we got computer engines. And I made many years ago video on this, proving that knight g5 is a good move, and knight g4, the refutation can be refuted. So the refutation actually is a losing. And I was very proud to discover that, and I say, oh, now we can go for that. And I did win a couple of games like this. And then when computers came, computer engines, actually you don't need Ripka for this to analyze, but Ripka would confirm the same things that I discovered then. It was not really very sophisticated tactics. But Ripka would confirm that after knight g5, knight g4 is a bad choice for black. Actually, everything I recommend on this DVD is approved by Ripka, is confirmed, and it has no tactical errors. So knight g5, and if somebody goes knight g4, which is the most common move, then knight takes f7 wins the game by force. King takes, queen f3 check, simply trying to pick up the knight, knight f6, and d5. This move, d5, will lead to a double trap. So both sides after d5 may be trapped. So may fall in a trap. ed. Now white may set up, white may think that they have a brilliant win after rook takes d5, and on queen c7, rook d7, mind-blowing shot. And after queen takes d7, black is getting mated on next move. there is a mate next move. Well, this is a very quick trap. The only problem is that trap E, which is white, after rook takes d5, may get trapped itself. After knight d4, black is winning now. And as very short calculation will show that white's attack ends and they're going to experience material losses. But the win is bishop b3, knight a5, bishop takes d5, bishop takes d5, knight takes d5, and queen d6. And in my previous year's analysis, I thought that I found the only winning move, g4, and I was very proud of myself, g4. But then Rybka showed that bishop g5 is just as good. White wins in both cases. For example, knight takes f6, that looks so good, is not good because after bishop takes f6, black is winning. You see the back rank mate ideas? And the same thing happens if white tries knight takes c7. Then rook takes c7. Same problem with back rank gets white in trouble. But after g4, we have a g5 threat, and we have all these knight takes f6 threats, knight takes c7 threat, because there is no longer a back rank mate, and that wins. Also, bishop g5 is good, according to Rybka. So this is completely losing continuation for black. So very interesting analysis, and the conclusion is if black does not go knight g4, then doesn't white have very strong attack? Because what we want to do next is we want to play, I don't know, what should you expect? For example, bishop f8, we can go queen h3, and you will see that white has tremendous attack here. Possibility of d5 and h7 square is weak. I would say black is in trouble. And to try to get out of the trouble puts them in a hot water, and white has a forced win after knight takes f7. So this is an interesting addition to a Panov attack in a Caro-Kann. Next, I want to introduce you to a couple of interesting lines in the French defense. One of them is the line I was recommending and like a main weapon in my suggested repertoire. And the other one, which we're going to look at first, is rather unusual line, very rarely played. It's very sharp, aggressive, and contains a couple of very interesting traps. Let's go look at this. E4, E6, D4, D5. Here we make very popular move E5. There's nothing new here. C5. But here, instead of normal and very common move, C3, which you will see probably, I would say, over 90% of the time played, knight F3 is the line I want to talk about. After knight F3, black has a couple of options. And both options, I think they're merging and they're approximately the same. Knight C6 is the most expected move. bishop d3, and now you should only expect the cd move. So the couple of options, actually it's only one option. They could have taken on d3 first, and when we go bishop d3, then knight c6, it would have been transposition. If black chooses not to take on d4, for example, go knight c6, and after bishop d3, I don't know, play some move like knight e7. Here, white has very good options. Besides taking on c5, they have very good option to transpose to the main c3 variation of c3 line of advanced variation. And now, if you're comparing it to main lines of e5 followed by c3, the knight on e7 is definitely out of place. So move cd you should be expecting. And just to mention for a second, move c4 cannot be recommended. It's simply a bad move. White will go bishop e2, followed by, well, now if black continues development like knight e7, now white can go h4, followed by c3 later. So I don't know, what can black do? Suppose rook b8 to prepare for b5. You can go rook h3, and after b5, c3. White has big advantage, space advantage on king side. And then later, knight may go from d2 to f1 to g3, and white has much better position. This is not something black should be trying. And I don't think you're going to find many players who will go c4 here. So if not c4, then we get back to the cd. Now, after cd, white castles, and black has to develop the rest of the king side pieces. As you can notice, bishop e7 is not a good option because it's taking away square for knight. So bishop c5 is an option with knight e7. This is the most expected way for black to play. The only other move is f6. After f6, I would recommend to play, and it's actually a theoretical move, is queen e2, and in my opinion, white holds the positional advantage here. If f takes e, knight takes e5, and this is playable variation for black. But now let's see what should black do. They should definitely continue development. Either knight f6, on knight f6 we go bishop f4, and on bishop d6 knight d2. After castle, knight f3. In my opinion, white is slightly better, and they have good grip on e5 square, and extra pawn is almost meaningless here, and knight e4 doesn't do anything at all. White can simply play bishop g3. So this is very playable position. Now, it's okay for black too, but I like white here. Now let's go back and get to the variation, get to the position where they play bishop c5. After bishop c5, we go rook e1. So what's white's plan that you understand here? White keep a close eye on the keeps an eye on e5 pawn, because that's the pawn is the key of their position. It guarantees them space advantage and prepares attack on a king side. After rook e1, knight g7, development has to continue. a3, it has dual purpose, and sometimes white may want to play, for example, if castle, there is a possibility of going b4, and after bishop b6, b5, and maybe bishop b2, getting the pawn on d4 back. At the same time, purpose of a3 move is to stop knight b4. Stop, for example, if white played knight d2, then knight b4. And we want to keep this bishop on d3 alive. So a3 is normal move, a5 respond. Of course, none of these moves is forced for black, but what I want to tell you here, those are the most common moves. People that play French, that's the kind of moves they make. And I myself, I played in some blitz games against relatively good players, and believe it or not, this position happened more than 50% of the times if you play this system. Now, after a5, knight d2, and queen b6. Now, this is also a very common position of the queen in French defense. We could go knight b3 and then take that bishop on c5, but then, you see, then what is going to happen that we derailed from our main line. We want to attack. We did, and knight on d2 is very good attacking piece because it's going to f1, aiming to the king side. So we go knight f1. You should expect knight g6. Those are all very normal moves. Knight g3 and castle and knight h5. Now let me tell you about this position. This is already very, very dangerous position for black. What should black do? Bishop d7 is a very bad move. It's a losing move after bishop h6. And you see if pawn takes, knight f6 check, and knight takes d7, winning the game. So suppose black makes some other waiting move like a4, trying to do maybe knight a5 and knight c4. It's a useful move. Now white plays bishop h6 anyway, and this is super powerful move combination, and you may call it a trick. It's a trap, because right now black is lost, but it's very hard to for black to see it coming unless they know. It's absolutely killing move. Obviously, black doesn't want white to take to let white take on g7. So on g takes h, we go simple queen d2 or queen c1, and after queen d2 move, black has one and only one response is f5. Well, moves like king h8 will lead to immediate mate. There are two different mates, knight f7 and queen h7, and there is no defense. Rook g7, simply queen is going to take on g7. And there is no defense. And you notice, this is unique position where all black's pieces, bishop on c5, knight on c6, queen on b6, queen d2 comes, and those pieces cannot help black's king. That's why black is absolutely lost here. Now, this variation can be, well, actually f5 should be played here, and after e takes f, there is not much for black to do. Rook f7, now queen takes h6, and after bishop f8, simply queen g5, and bishop takes g6 is coming, and knight h4 is coming. Black is absolutely lost. So this variation I may be recommending for players who love very sharp play, and I know many players, well, actually a huge percentage of players of certain level where from move one their brain it's kind of has locator of opponent's king. All they want to do is start attacking from move one. Obviously from move one you cannot attack, so this is as early as you can plan an attack, and it makes sense. I don't like unjustified attack such as e4, e5, bishop c4, and going for attack. That's not attack, that's insanity, and it just doesn't do anything without a ground. So because black is going to defend from immediate mate, and then you have jumping with your queens. This has no grounds. Completely different story here. We get the space, and now we conclude development. You see, we are not violating any of these rules. We conclude development, a3, a5. Now we bring another piece. Knight on b1 is coming to the h5 before we start making sharp aggressive moves. So after queen b6, after knight d2, knight g6, knight f1 in any order. So you see, we're bringing another piece into the play. And now we have concentration of pieces. Knight on h5, knight on f3, bishop d3, bishop on c1, and finally the queen. Rook is very important piece because it guards our key position or the e5 pawn, and that's why this attack may be very successful. So if black avoids playing knight g6, suppose they castle right away, knight f1. If black allows white to play bishop h7, that's it. Now it's all over. White has absolutely devastating attack here, followed by queen h5. On king g6 there will be queen g4, and it's standard sacrifice on h7. So that's why knight g6 is played, and in this position knight h5, creating very powerful threat of bishop h6, and it's all very well hidden. This is something for you to work with. Of course, there is a lot more to it, because in the early stage there are some other possibilities for black. But you know your main task, what you need to do. For example, black may play f6 in the very early stage. What would I do here? f6. This is unlikely move. I would go c3 simple. Now we get, sometimes you transpose to the main variation, main line of e5 variation, and if black makes some moves that make no sense, now f6 to me is not a good move. F takes e, knight takes e5, or maybe even pawn takes e5, and I don't like this position. Black's king is very weak. So those are the possibilities. You have to explore this to yourself. I'm giving you idea, main piece placement, and main threats. So you have to develop it a little further before you really play this system. Now, I want to show you one more variation of a French defense. That's the main weapon, as I would say, main weapon against French in my suggested repertoire. E4, E6, D4, D5, knight C3, bishop B4, E5, C5, bishop D2. The reason why I'm bringing this up, I'm not gonna analyze whole variation of bishop D2 because we have a DVD on this. What I want to show you, I want to show you some murderous attacks that may appear in a later stage of the game, and some interesting tricks and traps that will follow. But this is all like normal. After normal development of the game, we have some very well hidden combinations that may have very effective, that may be very effective. So, well, knight e7, knight b5, bishop takes d2, queen takes d2, black castles, f4, knight c6, knight f3. I'm gonna show you this may be a way to attract your attention to this variation, because what you may like, some people don't like this variation, but when they see very effective combination, very beautiful tactics and well hidden, which can score them a point without really much of an effort once they know this, how to play it, once they learn from this DVD. Oh, they may like this variation a little more. So now after knight f3, if black takes, obviously we're going to take eventually back, and we're going to have some positional advantage. But black may play a6, and after we go knight d6, they may take on d4 now, and after bishop d3 go f6. This is old variation and very well known variation, f takes c, f takes c. And now two possibilities, knight takes e5 and rook takes f3. They both very bad, and in a theory they recommend it for black, and saying that they both give black better position, at least equal, maybe better, and they are both wrong. So this variation is very old, and it's been known that those are both very good continuations for black for many decades. In reality, it's not good. Well, let's look at them. First is knight takes e5. Knight takes e5, knight takes e5. Black successfully wins a pawn. They won a pawn. But position is not very good. For position is lost, actually. Queen f4, threatening queen f7 and queen f8. And this was also analyzed and said that after knight f5, they said g4 doesn't do anything for white because of knight h6. They said so white has to play bishop takes f5, ef, queen takes d4. They have strong knight on e5, but they are pawn down. Position is approximately equal. That's true. That's if we go for it. But if we go for the move that is not recommended, then you're going to win the game. g4, knight h6. After queen g5, black is absolutely lost. Black is going to lose in next three moves. The threat is rook 6, followed by rook takes h6, and as amazing as it may sound, there is absolutely no defense against it. They can defend against this particular threat, but they're going to lose a lot more. So, for example, if bishop d7, then we go rook f6. Now we're threatening rook takes h6. King h8 is not solution because it's a mate here. And queen e7 is not solution because after bishop takes h7, white wins the queen. White wins the queen. On king h8, there is knight g6 check. And on king takes h7, there is rook takes h6 check. In both cases, black loses a queen. So this position is totally lost for black. This is one trap. Actually, it's well hidden. In theory, it was ending here, and theory was ending here. They see there is no immediate threat for white, and black is going to play bishop d7 next move, so black should be okay. As you see, black is not okay after queen g5. Now, this, we said two continuations. One of them was knight takes e5, and the other one is rook takes f3. And this, what makes this trap so valuable. But now I already published analysis on it on other DVD and also in my book about White's chess openings explained. So, on rook takes f3, what can black do here? What can black do? White plays rook takes f3, and after knight takes e5, it's interesting that previously, years ago, they were analyzing as the only option for white is to play rook h3. I have to point here that taking on f3 with a pawn is not a good idea, because after knight takes e5, white is up in exchange, but black has two pawns and very good position. So, and if we take with the rook, it was correctly assessed by the theory that after rook takes h3, queen d7, queen takes d6, bishop h7, and king f8. So black eventually escapes with the king on a queen side, and they have a better position. They have material advantage at this point. That I absolutely agree with. What I want to dispute is actually this position, which is, in my opinion, nearly losing for black. Queen f4 move is almost never analyzed. Knight takes f3, and now we take g takes f. Now, what is happening here? We are down a pawn. We hardly have any powerful threat, and that's why this position was never analyzed, because it looks so ridiculous for white. Yeah, it does look ridiculous for white, but it's okay as long as it's winning. And this is a winning position. Okay. Well, I would say this is better position for white. Black has to be smart enough to make the only move, knight f5, which gives white a very good position with a few possible traps. Knight f5 must be played. Then bishop takes f5, e takes f, and here we have two options. Well, let's start with rook e1 because it is the same variation. Bishop d7, queen e5. Now, after queen e5, we are threatening queen takes d5, bishop e6 loses, bishop c6 loses to queen e6. It's obvious that white is doing very well here. And I like this position very well for white. So they are going to be, right now they're 2 pawns down. They're going to easily get one back. And then they have absolutely dominating minor pieces, which is which gives them very good position. Now let's go to most common move and most expected move, knight c6. What is so bad about knight c6? After knight c6, what is going to happen here is queen f7 check, and king h8, queen h5, threatening checkmate on h7 and threatening knight f7 check. g6 is the forced move. Bishop takes g6. And now queen g8. After queen g8, it looks like it's a forced draw. And check, king g7, and neither side can make any progress, as you can tell. And this is double checked, and it's no, well, I came to conclusion that it's a draw. But that means it's okay for black if it's a draw. But it's not. Here I'm going to show you the winning continuation. Absolutely winning for white. So how do we win? We do play queen f7, and after king h8, we don't play queen h5 because g6 leads to a draw, as I already showed you. And the winning continuation is, after queen f7, king h8, is king h1 move. This leaves black with very dangerous king position that in a few moves gonna end the game. Rook g1 is absolutely murderous threat. So for example, bishop d7 cannot be played because right now after rook g1 or even queen h5, g6 is not going to work. Bishop takes g6, and on queen g8, simply rook g1. Knight f7 is coming, and the game is over. So black must play in this position queen g8, and after queen g8 we go queen f4. Now we're threatening knight f7. So black has no choice but to play knight d8. And then we go rook g1. And now after rook g1 you see that all white's pieces are attacking black's king, and this is as good of a trap as you can see. Well, trap is not always, so if your opponent does this, then you do that, and you win the queen. This is the trap where you're going to win his king in a very few moves. So this is absolutely a lost position for black. There is, on bishop d7, for example, you can go rook g3. You see now rook h3 is coming, and all black's pieces are totally paralyzed, and the game should end in next 2 to 3 moves, 3 to 4 moves maybe at most. So this is very interesting and very sharp continuation. Some of you may like this, and people who like very sharp position, very tactical and very attacking, well, if you get this type of position, it cannot get any better. So that's another way of playing some very attacking positions in a French defense. Few years ago, maybe like 3 years ago, there was a variation of center counter or Scandinavian defense that was popular for black. And a lot of players on the average level, well, average I would consider from between 15 to 2300 rated players, they adopted this variation for black, and they started playing it left and right, because once some theoretical article with some ideas in some magazine comes on, there's a lot of followers. Knight f6, and on d4, not knight takes d5, that was known, the only sensible continuation for many years. Oh, they would play bishop g4 first. Idea of this move is that if white goes knight f3, then black may be doing okay after queen takes d5, or even knight takes d5. But after f3, they don't mind retreating this bishop, but I am strongly opposing always moves like f3. And when from the day one I learned chess, I can tell you that I would never make f3 move, because f3 square is for the knight. They told me to develop minor pieces first and open your king later. So bishop e2 is the move. Bishop takes e2, queen takes e2. Now, this variation is kind of aggressive for black. They have some aggressive ideas and very interesting. Now, this you should know how to play against. First of all, after queen takes d5, we got to go knight f3 and knight c6. Black wants to kind of start an instant attack on white's king after what I will show you now. Knight c6. We should castle here, because taking the pawn is not a good idea, because white gets the pawn back and will have big advantage. So, but what black does, they castle long. They expect it to protect the d4 pawn, which is correct, because c4 will be met by knight takes d4. And we do protect this pawn, and now they go e6, and after we make logical move c4, and queen h5, knight c3. Now, what is so aggressive for black here? They play bishop d6. They are not threatening bishop takes h2 because knight will take on h2 and white's queen is protected. But they have absolutely devastating threat here. Well, for example, we play rook c1, or we play a3, preparing b4. After g5, white may find itself in a lot of trouble because now threatening g4. Bishop takes g5 will lose immediately to knight takes d4, attacking queen, threatening knight, and due to mate threat on h2, white is lost. So this threat has to be treated very, very carefully. Now, what are the traps that we aiming for on this DVD has to do with this? Well, opponent is threatening to trap us, but into g5 threat. But here we have a devastating blow we can deliver with a c5, and after bishop e7, c5 may seem to you as highly anti-positional move, but it's not, because what we do here, we go for immediate attack, c5, bishop e7, and the key move is b4. Now, what is b4 gonna do here? Of course, black may take on b4, which they should because b5 is coming. It's gonna be very dangerous. Something like, I don't know, something like king b8 will be dealt with b5 followed by b6, quickly opening the king's position, and we don't need to go through whole routine on how to mate bare king once we open it. So knight takes b4. Now we go, what, rook b1. And all of a sudden, black is in a grave danger. Okay. Knight has to move. Knight has to move to d5 or to c6. Moving knight to c6, as you may quickly see, will be absolutely crushing after queen b5. It's a naked eye can see that this is over. After knight d5, we play knight takes d5. And this is very dangerous as well. Now, black has several ways to take this knight. If knight takes d5, then queen b5, and you see there is no good way to defend this position. On c6, on b6, we could go c6 followed by knight e5, and with all these mating threats, black is not going to last long, obviously. And queen takes d5. It seems like it protects everything. But in reality, black is totally lost after queen takes d5. White plays knight e5, and amazingly, black has no time to protect the f7 pawn. Why? Because on rook f8, c6 is going to end the game immediately. White is threatening c takes b. Taking will lead to mate in one move. C takes b is threatening with also short mate shortly after that. There's simply no move. No move we can even attempt to avoid disaster for black. So the best move probably bishop takes c5 here, but then we're going to go rook b5. So we're going to win material, and we're going to have an attack. We're going to have everything you will ever want to have. And this is actually very, in my opinion, it's a very well-known position, bishop d6, and a lot of people played for it, and they particularly like queen on h5, bishop on d6, together with the idea of possibly going g5. And that made thousands of chess players very excited for black. Oh, there is a way to play opening and win in 10 to 15 moves for black. But if you are aware of it, they're going to get the opening, they're going to get the win very shortly, but win is going to be for white. After c5 and b4, white starts devastating attack with very little chance for black to survive. Actually, it's also very useful to know. For example, on g5 now, and first of all, we can even take on g5. Now g5 it doesn't work, or we can go b5, g4, take on c6, and play queen b5. You have very many very pleasant options here. And on b takes c, queen takes c6. Black is absolutely lost, no question about it. And you know, the queen g4 is not going to work here, because queen is going to simply take on f3. So black is lost in that position. That's an interesting, very sharp continuation. You should, my point is this, there are sometimes we choose sharp continuations and sharp variations because we like to play for attack, and we like to get aggressive positions. But here, in this opening, it's different. We play that because that's the best way to play. Right now, we have no idea of going on an immediate attack against black's king. And you should never have these ideas in the opening part of the game. Our ideas here are just basically the main development, and we are developing. Right now, we are facing very concrete threat of g5. You have to recognize the g5 threat. And the only effective way to deal with it is by making a blow of c5, bishop e7, b4. So you're going to get, this is kind of a trap, and at the same time, very good attacking position. It's nearly winning for white. So that's another interesting suggestion. So I hope you enjoyed the DVD on attacks, on various different attacks, various different traps in the early stage of the game. In my opinion, they are very useful because, remember, if you don't choose to play these variations, you still have to be aware of it, because you may face it from the opposite side of the to play against it. So either way, I hope you enjoyed it, you find it useful, and I will wait for your suggestions. There are more traps on different. We didn't even touch D4 first move. Those are only E4 continuations, only for white and only after E4. I hope you enjoyed it again and have a very good day, and I will see you soon.